Sandra, the screen has disappeared.
Okay, I'm back. Am I back again? Okay.
Yes, you're back. Hello.
Yeah, it must be the Alexandrian internet. So, so never underestimate the role of beginnings in your introduction and the beginning in your chapters. I can't stress this enough. There's just the way the idea, philosophically speaking, of beginnings is what makes things possible. We're talking from good morning in life, even sunrises, the birth of a baby. We always associate beautiful things with beginnings, with magical things. So always give emphasis to that. Never just rush through it. One second. And supervisor. Okay, now this can be a very tricky one, and it really depends on everyone's situation and their relationship to the supervisor. But you've got to know your supervisor. What type of supervisor are they? Because a supervisor could actually be like a marriage to you, especially if they're micromanaging things. So you've got to remember you're going to be with a supervisor for 4 years. Sometimes people change supervisors. Okay, that's fine. But do you have a good relationship with the supervisor? It's your right, and I think you should ask other students how was the supervision and if it worked for them. And a good supervisor, a secure supervisor with good self-esteem would be happy to recommend students that you can speak to. But it's really important to have a cordial relationship with the supervisor, and you're going to face a lot of challenges with a supervisor, even if they're kind and well-intentioned. And it could be not, the problem that they don't reply to emails for many months, for example. This is one of a common complaint. So you've got to make sure that this is straightened from the beginning with their supervision type approach. And depending on the university, what rights do you have if you're not satisfied with the supervisor? Are you able to change supervisors? Are you able to address matters? Does it even need an admin? Is your supervisor open enough for you to be able to communicate with them? So supervision is something that's crucial. It's more even important than the university that you're enrolled in. And it's something that needs to be worked on. But once you have a good supervisor, then everything starts to fall into place. Okay, now the idea of time, and it's really important, and I can't stress this enough, you've got to create a sacred time to write. When is the best time to write? Are you a morning person? Are you a night person? For some reason, I never meet afternoon persons. They're either morning or they're afternoon. I don't know why the screen is flickering.
Yes, it's the internet again.
It's actually better than the internet being cut off, so it's an improvement today. Maybe it's my hand gestures. I'm not sure what it is, but it's kind of scared of me. So the thing is that when do you write the best? And you've got to block these times out for writing. There's studies that have been done that show the most creative, inspiring time to write is after sunrise until noon. That is when your brain is on fire. And if you need to reply to emails or other routine things, leave that to the afternoon. But if you're a night person, you can just flip that around. The important thing is that you find the time where you write the best. Where is the best barakah in your time? This is crucial. And we've got to distinguish between discipline and motivation. People often say, I'm not motivated to write, but really that's not how it works. You've got to be disciplined to write. You've got to work on a regiment style of writing. If you write best from 7 a.m. till, I don't know, 11 a.m., then you've got to stick to those times, even if you're not motivated. You've got to do your best to give it its justice. Motivation depends on attitude and behavior and emotions. Discipline depends on habit and regular routine. So try and focus on the discipline. It's the way militaries think, it's the way religions think, it's the way, if you want results, you really need to focus on how you discipline your life in the context of the PhD. And the writing aspect in a disciplined format can yield more results than just simply saying if I'm motivated today or not. The other thing is about multitasking. Multitasking, believe it or not, is a new phenomenon. It's actually a very modern phenomenon. In the history of PhD writing and scholarly dissertations over the centuries, people just did one thing, and that's write their dissertation. But in the modern age, we have lots of multitasking, and this cannot be avoided. But hopefully it can be minimized, that you really dedicate one day to, not one day in a week, of course, hopefully more than one day, but in that day you dedicate thesis writing, and other things like supermarket, grocery shopping, etc., can be done at a different time, hopefully maybe at night or maybe on a different day. But interruptions during your writing can really drain you of morale. So remember, writing requires momentum. When you start writing early in the day, it goes up and up and up and up, and then you're making progress. It's not like you can just open up and start writing and then you're making progress. It's not like that. It's a very gradual process till you get to the climax of what you're doing in your writing. It's not as simple as yeah, I'll do this today and I'll do this today and then I'll do my thesis. It's not as simple as that. You've got to give justice to your thesis. Okay, and so remember that life is very strange, but it's the way time works. Is that if I was to give my students an assignment and I tell them to hand it in 2 weeks' time, they will probably wait till the last day or two, and or maybe they just won't be able to do. Yeah, and so the fact of the matter is that when they have a day before, sometimes they can work miracles. I mean, we're all like this. It's not just a student. There's something about deadlines, which you should give yourself as well. If your supervisor is not giving it to you, try and create artificial deadlines. Sometimes I say, the deadline is the inspiration. And so if you can get yourself into a position where you can create more content out of limited time, that would be marvelous. And I can tell you from my experience with PhD students in Australia, I've come across single mothers who had part-time jobs, who finished their PhDs before full-time students on scholarships, and who had no other job. Why? Because these single mothers structured their time. It's really all about structuring. I can't emphasize that enough. With structure, that gives you freedom. Freedom to do other things, but also freedom to write brilliantly in your thesis. Also possible, another factor, and I'm guilty of this because I know I don't fulfill this, is to deactivate social media and hide your phone. The fact of the matter is that it is really one of the biggest distractions that happens, and phones can really mess up your mind and your thinking compass when they're used often. Having said that, social media has benefited me a lot from the journal articles that are published, or the recommendations, content. It's another world, and it has its positives. But if you have to, for example, post something, and especially if it's going to grab your attention, then I would suggest use the social media on the weekends, because you're going to be that person maybe that has to check if you got comments or likes. So try to give social media a specific time of the day or time of the week, and give more justice to your thesis during the weekdays. Space. Space is really important where you work. Now, for me, I write for some reason more in a cafe than I do in a library or an office. You've got to know where your space is. Where in Cairo do you find yourself doing better? Is it at the library? Is it in Rico Cafe Maadi? I just had to say that because I miss that cafe. Is it in Costa? Is it in Vino's? Is it in the home? Can the home be conducive? And I find that if you do the same space every day, it becomes difficult to write as good as I did the day before. Cafes for me can be a bit costly. I think after a while, if you keep going to cafes, but they have done studies on this, and they found that cafes do enable a colorful creativity to come out of your mind because of the space, the ambience, and it depends on the cafe. It's not like you can just go to an ahwa and do your thesis there. It might not be as effective, but you know your cafe spaces and where you might be able to do well. And so it's something that really you've got to think about. Can you do it with a friend who's doing a thesis? It actually helps a lot. It gives you a motivation to do well together. And what I do is that we turn off our phones, like completely power off for 3 hours. We don't talk, besides the greeting and all that, etc. And we try and write as much as we can. So environment the environment does matter. And also, I put there the chair you sit on matters. If you have a chair that's causing you back pain or other problems, I would say it's really worth investing in a chair. Of all the things you can invest in a home, especially in the pandemic age, the chair really matters. It's different. And of course, get up every 20, 30 minutes to exercise or to stretch. Don't sit 1 hour straight in a chair. It's really important you do these mobility, these movements. And if you're a coffee person like me, a good coffee also makes a huge difference. Tools, and we get onto the subject. Tools matter, technology matters. People say, no, you can do, I can do it any way I want, sure, but it might take you longer. One of my biggest regrets during my thesis is that I waited very late to use citation software, which for me, it was EndNote. And if I had learned to do EndNote from the beginning, I might have saved 3 or 4 months of work rather than manually putting things in before, etc. It was a big mess. But these are investments that you do, and I promise you, you save so much time later on. So citation software, there's EndNote, there's Zotero. Maybe your university has a license or they have a preference. Try and find out which one it is. See which one you're comfortable with or matches the style of writing. But I don't know much about Zotero or the others. I've only used EndNote and I do like it. Organizational software, Microsoft OneNote is free. I highly recommend it. It really has allowed me to mind map all my thoughts, not just my PhD, but other research and life matters. So just go on YouTube and see a tutorial. You will love it. And if it's not OneNote, there's other software out there. But Microsoft OneNote is really one of my favorites. The other is qualitative, quantitative analysis software like Envivo, MaxQDA, Atlas. There's so many out there. You might not even be necessary to use them, but just check if the amount of data that you have requires to have or to use this type of software, or if your university has a license to it, or if you can't, can you get it from somewhere else? So I would never downplay the use of technology in this. On matters of health, I've got to emphasize this, that the PhD is one crucial aspect of your life. It is not your life. Maybe it's common sense, but we forget this and we start talking about our PhD, stressing about it. It becomes the subject of everything, but it doesn't help when everyone else is asking you, how's your PhD? Is a PhD? You know, it's a very repetitive thing, and it's a big deal. Let's face it. You chose to do a big deal in your life, and you're going to have to engage with that. But I need to emphasize that